So I'm here to talk about my birth story. It's what I would call probably a very terrible experience for my mother. She, so I was born January 24th, 1995, and if you do a little bit of math from that, that means I was conceived somewhere around April. Which I can't think of anything significant that happened on April, but I do know that about 5 or 4 months prior to that, my sister was born in December. So they probably were just, you know, ready to do it again. Besides that, so let's skip ahead a little bit. So my mom was diabetic when she was pregnant with me, so that meant that she had to go to the hospital pretty often. I think she said it was once every 2 weeks, just to make sure that you know, her blood sugar wasn't too high, and that that my heart or brain wouldn't grow too big because of it, and because that would obviously lead to some sort of, you know, problems with me. But you know, it was fine. But she told me that when she had to go to the hospital, because my dad had gotten injured at work and he couldn't do anything, he was the only person in the house that was able to drive, she'd have to walk there. So she'd have to walk through, she said, 15 city blocks, and it just so happened that at the point when she was pregnant with me, it was actually raining a lot, and the streets were like, up to the sidewalks was covered in rain. I actually should have looked up to see what, you know, the rain reports on that would, because that would have been interesting, but either way. So she would trudge along in the rain just to get to the hospital, just so they could check to make sure I was okay. And she'd have to walk back as well. Getting closer to, well, or rather, getting to when I was actually born, right, I remember. It turns out that her water didn't break when I was, you know, about to come out. I guess that's kind of normal. I looked it up, and it's supposedly a good thing, but the way she made it sounded like an absolutely terrible thing. Like she was completely unprepared for the fact that she was gonna have a baby. So she was rushed to the hospital probably at about 12 in the afternoon. Once again, actually, I should have asked her how she got there, because she'd have to take the bus. So I assume they called an ambulance, and they went to the hospital. And after a couple of hours, I actually came out the wrong way. So my feet came out first instead of my head, meaning that as soon as I was born, the doctors were actually concerned that I might have actually broken an arm. So they had to do an x-ray, and luckily for her and luckily for me, because I would have been, you know, the truest victim of them all, I turned out fine, and here I am like 24 years later, 23-ish. Thank you guys for listening.